One of the most difficult things about making YouTube videos is coming up with a good title, and often it makes more impact on the video than the actual content. For example, if I'd called this video 5 Lightroom hacks to improve your photography, then it probably would have done much better, and that's essentially what it is. But those kind of titles do make my skin crawl a little bit. But if that's what I've called it and you'll already know that, then please forgive me, but I think it's going to be a good video and provide you with some value, because over the last couple of weeks people have been sharing stories with me or contacting me directly to say that they've been using this opportunity when these restrictions are coming into place to stay at home and do some editing and go through their back catalogue and things like that. So let's just get on with it. Let's get straight into the computer and crack on with these 5 Lightroom hacks that can improve your photography. Right, so we're into Lightroom, and these are the images that we're going to be taking a look at. And let's just get straight into it and take a look at this first one. So I'm just going to hit D to go into the develop module. This is one of my water drop images. Now, the first one is to do with spot removal. I've talked about spot removal before, and it's really simple to do. So we've got this water drop here that I want to get rid of, and then I can just remove that. Now, that's easy and that's simple. That's not particularly the hack, but a nice little trick, because sometimes on other images, like this one, for example, the spots can be difficult to see. So let's just hit on the reset button. And the spots on that one are not obvious. We've maybe got that one that we can see. However, if we hit Q to bring up the spot removal tool and then come down to visualize spots and then just hit that, it creates this kind of black and white effect where you can really easily see the spots in your image. So that's the one we could see before, this one just here. But look at all these other ones, those there. If we come off it a second, so let's just unclick visualize spots. They're really difficult to see in that image, but with that on, I can just bring up the spot removal tool, click them, and remove all of those really easily. I find that having on the slider here just about 3/4 on the slider is a good way to go. This slider kind of increases the gain. That shows the really obvious ones, but if you go a bit too far, some of them start to disappear into that grainy, noisy gain type thing. So 3/4 I think is about right. And then we can just easily remove those spots and then just come off the spot removal tool, and there you go. You got a nice clean image. Now, another way of doing it, because on landscape photographs sometimes, like this one, the spots can more easily blend into the background and they're not as easy to see with that visualize spots tool, because especially if you've got lots of detail like this rock area. Another way to do it though is to use the dehaze slider very briefly and just go all the way up on the dehaze. When we drag that dehaze slider right up to 100 temporarily, you can see that spot just there. So I can bring up the spot removal tool, get rid of that water spot that's on the lens, hit Q again. I mean, that's not doing it perfectly, but it'll look fine once I just reset the dehaze, and there we have that spot now removed, and that looks really good. And it's just a couple of nice tricks to help you with your spot removal. That is number 1. Right, let's go on to the next one with our next image. Now, this is an image from a vlog I did in London a little while ago, and I shot this using a tilt shift lens. Now, what a tilt shift lens does in this scenario is let you get these nice straight lines on buildings, because if you're using a relatively wide angle particularly, and then you tilt the camera up, because of the way the optics work, it can cause distortion so that the straight lines of the buildings as we see it start to become diagonals going out the top of your frame. Now, the shift function of a tilt shift lens corrects that, but if you've just got normal lenses like I'm normally shooting with it, we can't do that. So this is one I've shot with a normal lens. If I click reset and remove all those, you can see how those lines at the edge of these buildings and towards the center, it gets less pronounced towards the center of the image, but at the edges, those buildings are kind of pointing diagonally. Now, we can correct this with a really neat little tool in Lightroom. Let me just quickly add a few changes to this image so you can just see it a little bit better. There we go, that looks nicer. Right, now all we need to do to straighten these lines up, and this is so powerful, this tool, I'm excited to show you. We just come down to the transform wheel. So if it's like that, just unwheel that on Lightroom, and then we're going to come to guided. So click guided, and then it gives you this little loop to look at. So all we need to do is firstly correct our verticals. So we're going to click on the edge of this building here, and I'm going to drag down, keeping the mouse button held, to a second point like that. And then we need to do a second one. So on this one, I want both sides of the image to be corrected. So I'm going to come right over the other side and select this line here of this building. Let's use this bit here down to maybe there, so I get a nice straight line. And then it magically corrects those verticals. So they are now pretty much straight within that image. We also might want to correct the horizontal. In this situation, I was kind of shooting across the river and the bank at the other side was not straight, or I was sort of perpendicular to it. So it's not necessarily straight in my image, but I can somewhat correct that as well if I'm not square on to that bank. So let me just drag another line across the shoreline here, just using the edge of that shadow. See how that sort of is a bit higher at the left than it is at the right hand side of the image. Let's get that selected, and then again I want a second line, so I need another sort of straight line. I'm going to use the top of this building here to draw in that horizontal line across there, and then it will do its magic again and correct those horizontal lines. So if I now just come off that, you don't necessarily even need to do the horizontal. I still think it looks pretty good like that, but it gives you those options to get those nice straight buildings to essentially in software emulate what a tilt shift lens is doing. I think it's a really nice little trick, and it works in all kinds of different scenarios, but particularly effective with street photography or cityscape photography, or any kind of image where you're expecting straight lines and you haven't quite captured them in that way. Now this next little tip is to do with, in Lightroom, if we come back up to the top here, is to do with the clarity and the texture, particularly for woodland photography. But this applies to any kind of image where you want to put extra detail and extra focus on one element of an image. And that's definitely the case with this shot here, where I want all that attention to be on the tree. Now, I'm pretty happy with the tone and the color. I like that kind of muted palette that this image has, but I want to put a bit more focus on the tree because a lot of this sort of shrubbery around here is very sharp and it's distracting my attention. Now, I've shot this image at f1.8 with a nice wide aperture, so it's given me that little bit of separation from between the tree and the background. But this stuff here is causing a bit of a distraction. So the first thing we're going to do is to bring up a brush, and I want to just take my exposure right down so I can see where I'm painting. You could use the mask, but I find that's just much easier to do. Make the brush a bit bigger and then paint over that. You could increase the flow of your brush to 100 so you don't have to go over it a few times, but I like to have that bit of control if I make a mistake. Just make the brush smaller and just paint over that tree like that, nice and easy, and we'll just rush through that very quickly. Right, there we go. That mask is now painted in. Doesn't look very good at the moment because I've reduced that exposure right down, but I'm just going to reset that exposure now that we have what we want. So I'm just going to come off the brush a minute, even though we've made no changes at the moment, and I'm going to reduce the clarity and the texture across the entire image. So bring the clarity down like that and the texture as well. You can play around with both of them to see how you want it to look, but at the moment I'm focusing on what the foreground here looks like and the background a bit, everything that we've not painted on essentially. So does that look good? We want to give it that kind of painterly, mystical, magical woodland feel that you see in a lot of woodland photography out there. So I'm going to go to about -70 for both, and then I'm going to bring that brush back up and select the mask that we've done and then do the opposite. So we're going to take the clarity slider up by maybe even further, go up to about 95, and then do the same with the texture as well. And it creates that kind of really mystical feel. So we're nice and soft in this area with not very much texture because we've turned it down. Then we've compensated with that brush on that mask there. If we if we mouse over it, and you can see the detail coming out in that tree. You can paint, if you haven't got your flow up to 100, you can paint over it a little bit more to enhance the effect, or go over these little bits where we didn't do it, or these little branches here, and you can see the effect that that has. And these ones here, maybe these ones up here look like that, and that's just a really nice effect. And you see that in loads of woodland photography, and it's just a great way to put emphasis in that place where you really want it. So that's where we started, and then that is where we've finished up, and I think that looks really nice. Right, let's move on to the next one, and we have this image here. Now this one, what I love, one of the things I really love about Lightroom, and this is the next hack, is presets, but also the radial filter. I'm kind of combining two because it's something I use very often. Now presets are great because as you go through your editing style, if you find yourself doing something over and over again, it's really great to save it as a preset. Now one preset I use quite a lot is one that I call Bad Weather. You can get all of my presets as part of a Raw Room subscription. The Raw Room is now free for the first 7 days. You can get the Landscape Photography Masterclass, the Water Drop Photography Masterclass, which is a great thing to do at home, and then you get all the presets, which even if you unsubscribe, you get to keep. So I'll put a link down below for you to check that out and get a 7-day free trial. But once you've installed the presets, we just need to come up to here, and Bad Weather is the one I'm going to select because it just works in all kind of overcast landscape photography type conditions. Once we've done that, we can then just make small adjustments. So you can see the exposure. I might just want to, I think that looks about right actually, but you can change it. What I'm going to change very quickly is just the gradient filter there. Just move that up slightly to get a bit more detail out of the tops of that mountain. But then it's the radial filter. That's what I want to talk about next. So the radial filter is essentially a circular version of the gradient filter. And if we select it there, so I'm just going to resize that radial filter to something like that, and then just shift it like that, because I kind of want the interest to be on the water and the hill or the waterfall in the background. Now what the radial filter does by default in Lightroom is it affects everything outside of the filter. So in that shot there, it's the area that is red that the sliders are then affecting. So here I've just, on the preset, I've just reduced it by almost one stop, and you can see if I go all the way, it does something like that, and you can get really dramatic effect to your images. So, but if you click invert there, it will then affect everything inside of the filter. So that just gives you so many creative things you can do with that across any image. You can use more than one. You can affect small areas of the image, just like you can with a brush, but you've got all these controls here to do different things. You can change the white balance outside of our specific area. So that still looks okay, or we can make it more blue and just affect the sky and some of this shadow. So you've got a lot of things you can do with that radial filter, and it's combined with the presets. I think it's a really nice thing to do to very quickly give your images that extra bit of drama, and the presets just make it really easy as well. So one of the things people ask me about a lot is how do I get my images from my computer into Instagram, where I share most of my work, and I'm going to do that now with this image. So I guess the hack for this one is Lightroom Mobile. It's the reason, probably the primary reason, that I'm still using Lightroom overall, with its few performance issues, rather than moving on to something else like Capture One. But it's these mobile features that I really, really like. So if we come back to the grid, for this here is a collection. So I created a collection called Lightroom Hacks for this tutorial, and I've just clicked on this little button here, which has shared it into the cloud, into my Lightroom Mobile or my Lightroom CC account. That then automatically puts it onto my phone. So it does it pretty quickly actually. Once I've clicked that button, it uploads it pretty quickly. And then I just come into the Lightroom Mobile app like that, and I can see the hacks. And as you update it on any device, it will update on here as well. So if we open up this picture here that we're looking at now, I can see that that is there. The edits are made and the image is looking really nice on there. Now, all I need to do to get that on my phone then is click the little share icon up here. And then I'm on an iPhone here, so I'm just going to put export to camera roll. And then it saves it to your camera roll. And then we just go straight into Instagram then. And I just click on the plus icon to upload a new photo. That pops straight up. I want to just adjust it slightly like that. And then I'm ready to go and share that on Instagram once I've written a nice little caption to go along with it. It's really quick, it's really easy, and by far the most straightforward way of getting your images off your computer and onto Instagram, and it works across all your devices. The other thing I really like about this is if I'm on the iPad, I can actually edit the raw files, and it's just a really nice way to do it. I've done that before where I shot images on my phone and edited out in the field, and it just gives you those extra features that you don't get with other editors, and that's why I really like working with Lightroom still. If you are stuck inside and you want a couple of ideas, a few photo ideas that you can do at home, then check out the video. They'll be up there somewhere, and I will see you on another one very, very soon. I'm Adam, this is First Man Photography. Take care, out.